Side 2 begins with an interlude. Yeah, the thing about this particular album is that it has multiple interludes sprinkled throughout it. Some may see it as mere padding since it's mostly just really short bits of spoken word, sometimes even just a single phrase and that be it. But I think they managed to build upon the themes of the songs that they go in between and drive home with them, while still leaving just enough for listeners to be engaged and think about them. Anyways, this first one is called The Nonconformist Oath. Already we seem to have a bit of an oxymoron from the title. However, the irony doesn't stop there, as it's basically a declaration where a single voice recites this oath and a crowd would repeat it, promising to be different, to be unique, and to not repeat things that other people say. And of course, the crowd doesn't repeat that last one. And interestingly enough, this was sampled from the 1978 comedy album A Wild and Crazy Guy by, of all people, Steve Martin. Yes, that's Steve Martin. This sample had been pitched down slightly and distorted a bit, so you couldn't exactly recognize his voice right away. But it's still pretty interesting that he did albums featuring his stand-up comedies, even as early as the early 70s. More you know. However, that fittingly segues into the similarly titled Submission. Featuring singer Kalila and rapper Danny Brown, this trippy hoppy track has a bit of a moody atmosphere to it, both with its minimalist synths as well as the mellotronic choir-like background vocals that appear in the choruses especially. Kalila seems to sing from the point of view of an individual person who desperately wants to feel love, willing to change fates and go the distance for such, while Danny could be singing as a past love of hers, or even an inner demon that she has to face within herself. A demon day, if you will. Rapping rapidly about skating on thin ice and having no heart on its x-ray. Probably because its actual heart is about 3,000 times too small. And anyways, while this track may not have any of 2D's distinct vocals in it, it's still a decent dark pop tune, which is what the Gorillaz generally have been to begin with anyway. Kalila herself had previously explored similar themes of strained relationships in her EP Hallucinogen, which I could check out and recommend as well. Next is Charger, a tech metal track featuring the slave to the rhythm herself, Grace Jones, as well as a gritty industrial beat. This song brings back round the erratic and frantic nature of Ascension while still sounding distinct on its own right. In it, 2D sings in this mechanical, machine-like and almost monotone manner, even repeating the same set of lines twice in a row in the exact same way, likely reflecting the themes of mundaneness and conformity, and how easily it could all drive anyone to near madness and paranoia. Apparently, it took a whole 4 months to get even a single day booked for recording with Grace Jones. And even then, it itself took about 4 hours of mostly her doing a lot of vibing, ad-libbing, and just general improv freestyle over the already made instrumental music. And after they wrote and came up with all they had for potential lyrics, Damon would just cut up all those papers jotted with lyrics and just scatter them all across the studio floor, eventually picking out which ones they liked best, going with them, and just singing them out in the end. Kind of like shaking and mixing up in a hat or a bowl or something. And apparently, the final mix has about 90 separate audio music tracks. Blimey. And yes, that stuff about scattering bits of paper all over the floor, that actually happened. Feel free to look it up, you don't have to just take my word for it. And as Grace sang in this, she, and 2D as well, did take us for a ride with this song, charting us up with energy. She is the ghost, she is the sword, and she is also the wraith and shield. After that is another interlude, Elevator Going Up. Most of the interludes here, along with the Switch Off My Robot intro, were spoken by Ben Mendelsohn, whom many of you would know as the guy who got his neck snapped by Tom Hardy as Bane from The Dark Knight Rises, and the director guy who got his neck force choked by Darth Vader in Rogue One. Choking on aspirations, eh? Apparently one of those aspirations was guest appearing on a Gorillaz album. And in this one, he simply just says, elevator going up. And that's it. And at a mere 4 seconds, it's most definitely the shortest Gorillaz song ever, to date. If I can even call it a song. Then we have Andromeda, featuring contributions from rapper DRAM, short for Does Real A-Word Music. I say A-Word because YouTube. And backing vocals from Roses Gabor, aka Noodle, singing as her from the time she sang in Dare and Demon Days. Which does make me wonder, for all the guest singers and collabs they had, setting aside 2D for most of the time, they never gave Noodle a lead singing role again in any song after 192000 and Dare. Hell, they don't even bring back Del the Funky Homo Sapien for any of the tracks here, or in Demon Days, Plastic Beach, or Song Machine. He was a member for a while. As a ghost possessing Russell Shaw, but still. Better luck next time. Anyways, this chill yet bittersweet song itself was named after a nightclub in Colchester that Damon used to visit in his young years. And it's dedicated to not one, but 2 late souls. Damon's mother-in-law, Ethel Winstanley, and classic R&B singer Bobby Womack, who had appeared in previous Gorillaz songs Stylo, Cloud Unknowing from Plastic Beach, and Bobby in Phoenix, obviously, from The Fall. 2D even blatantly mentions him in the line, "When the courts were closing, it was Bobby gracing. I knew that. A bullet to the right man, he pulled it back." Knowing all this in mind, this song could be about how easily we could lose someone so close to us, someone we love and hold dear, and how very helpless we are at it. Those people are just as precious to us as the time we spend with them, so spend with them wisely and well, as in tomorrow could be the last, before it comes today. The repeated line of "take it in your heart" may seem to drive this home in a natural, engaging, and, well, heartfelt way. It's honestly a very beautiful song in the Gorillaz category, up there with Soundtech Gravity, El Manana, Broken, Amarillo, and Humility. Side 2 ends with Busted and Blue, possibly the only song in this album to not be an interlude or a collab with a particular guest. And much like Andromeda, not only does 2D's vocals completely dominate this track, but it too is so serene, beautiful, and otherworldly. It's also the longest song of the album too, at over 4.5 minutes. Starting with some ambient sounds like we're out in a jungle or rainforest in the calm dead of night, before soothing synthesizers enter the scene. And right in the very middle of the Humanz album, 2D finally gets a chance to take the complete full spotlight as he vaguely sings about where it all came from, how in this universe and through the lithium. As in the Nirvana lithium or the Evanescence lithium? You make the call. The mention of Busted and Blue could refer to the feeling of being worn out and down, mentally breaking down from all the stress and paranoia going on in the world. Or it could just be another case of Murdoch beating him black, busted, and blue. All his life, he has felt like a satellite, constantly lost, weightless, and invisible, and he asks us to beam a light, to offer a bit of hope, care for him. As female vocals saying, "Be my love," a need for security and companionship in a world infected with fear and apathy, which I think many people can relate to. How sometimes we either feel lost in a crowd, for instance, or just invisible in a room full of people talking and chatting among one another, and sometimes if you try to speak, you'll just be either interrupted or your voice would just be drowned out in it all. It's deep, it's beautiful, and I dare even say it's almost a bit of a tearjerker, as TV tropes would put it. This song may not sound like Busted, the boy band, but it sure does sound a bit like Blue, the boy band.